not too picky, so I'm just going to plop her down. Alright, hello. As you can see, I'm in top-down view for the very first time. Some people have asked me to show videos of me working on my artwork, so I'm going to be trying out this format today. And today what I'm going to be making is I'm going to make a little like stamp essentially of my logo, which here it is right here. The reason why I'm doing this like little mini print is because I'm gonna practice printing on fabric with some fabric ink that I'm getting soon. As of right now, it's still in the works, but I might have a workshop that I'm gonna be demoing in Jewel in August, which I don't know when this video is gonna be posted, but I need to practice printing on fabric because that's what I proposed to them, and they were like, yes, let's do that. So I need to figure out how to do that. But anyway, so I'm going to get this block all ready. I'm using one of the Speedball, like already like pre-made linoleum printing blocks that they have. It's my first time using one of these, so I just like normal linoleum, honestly. So I just want to see like what a more like very quick, easy to purchase option is like. It's gonna be a test. I'm gonna see how exactly I like that. So yeah, the first step is get your design. This is my design. I already had it all printed and made out. Second step, put design on the block. I like to use graphite paper. You trace the design on here. I have to remember to flip it over. Don't want to make that mistake. And yeah, I'm gonna get this all transferred. Alright, image is all taped down. I like to tape it down in 2 points, just in case it moves around a little bit. I got my graphite paper, and then I got a colored pen just to help me keep track of what I marked and what I didn't mark. So I'm going to go ahead and start tracing. One thing I am noticing with this new block, I'm pretty sure it's the Speedball Speedy Curve or Speedy Carve block, is that it transfers pretty nicely with my graphite paper. I have a carpal tunnel issues, so with regular linoleum, sometimes it just I have to do like several passes over and over just to transfer it onto the block, and it just absolutely kills my hand every single time. Usually I have to wait like a day or two before I can actually start carving the block, but with this I'm like, wow, I'm actually making pretty good progress. I think the graphite is like smearing a little bit on the block, so that's a downside, but anyway, I'm gonna keep carving. I'll show you when I'm all done. I finished up the transferring. Yeah, with the Speedy Carve, it definitely smears a lot, which, let me see here. There you go. You can see it smears a lot, but it saves my hand. That's nice. Now I'm going to outline it in Sharpie. This just makes it a little bit more clearer for what I need to carve and what I need to carve. And then, oh yeah, I'm not sure if I said this earlier, but the reason why the image that I transferred on here is mirrored is because when you essentially flip it over and stamp it like this, it's going to be right side up. So whatever you put on your carving block, you need to have it the mirrored image of the final illustration. Okay? Alright, here's to adding Sharpie. So here is the final product. I kept going back and forth on it, like what parts I wanted to be all black, what parts I wanted to be cut out essentially. This was my disaster zone of a planning piece, but I'm pretty happy with what I was able to ink out. So you don't, for people who want to do this themselves, you don't have to color in like I did with the black. For me, I like to make my plates idiot proof by indicating that black is the ink, the printing ink, and then anything else So the pink base, that has to be cut out. Having it all just colored in indicates that I need to keep that, so I'm not going to cut it out. But you don't obviously have to do this. It's just personal preference. Well, shit, I thought I was recording, so that's my bad. But I was just chatting and carving for a little bit. Basically what I was talking about was the beauty in giving yourself grace with what you're making. Because in college, this was before I was officially diagnosed as someone who has anxiety, I used to be way hard on myself on the art pieces that I make. And it was very challenging, specifically with my more traditional art classes, where like with printmaking, it's all like actual materials rather than working on my iPad all the time. Like, I love working traditionally and it's great, though it kind of frustrated me when quote unquote mistakes would happen when I was carving pieces, printing pieces, and like there's always at least one point in all my printmaking classes where I would just like bawl my eyes out because I was so upset with how a piece was going. Like some small thing happened and like it doesn't look exactly how I wanted it in my brain. And since I graduated and I'm outside of that classroom setting, which like the classroom setting works really well for me, except that I think it just puts too much pressure on myself to be good or perfect from the very start of learning something, rather than giving myself the grace to have mistakes and fail every once in a while. Because honestly, when you fail at something, that gives you the best opportunity to learn more from it. And like my printing professor, she was all about that, like just like screw around and like try different things. And like she always like, there's aspects where you just like turn in a small paper before you turn in the final project. Like, this is what I was intending to go, this is what happened, this is what I thought would convey from the piece, things like that. And she was always about enjoying the process and accepting that the process, there could be some hardships and challenges with the process. And then it wasn't until like after I graduated that I began to start like fully enjoying art again, because I was putting less pressure on myself and I could just do things on my own pace, own time, own materials, all because I wanted to do it. Always made it so like the pieces I made in school were what I was specifically interested in, but like now, again, with the time frame and everything, I could just make pieces on my own time. And if I'm the only person that understands that, like what the piece means and everything, then that's okay, because it's my artwork. Although like I obviously have to make a career, so like there has to be some pieces where like it's meant for more mass appeal, because we live in a capitalist society. But I can make any and all pieces all by myself in my own due time with the least amount of pressure, and just fully enjoy art like the same way as like a hobbyist would enjoy art. I was just thinking about this yesterday, like the reason why some people lose their love of art after going through college, and like they just don't want to make things again. And like basically in college you're learning art in a different way. You're not like a passive observer anymore. You become critical of things around you that you see that are made, and then you of course then become critical of the art that you're making. And so you develop that critical gaze, and then if that gaze becomes too hard on yourself, that's why I feel like sometimes people's love for the art of creating goes away, because they're just being too critical, or they have to make things for other people and not just for themselves anymore. Which there's nothing wrong with like going through college and discovering that art is truly just a hobby to yourself. And like again, going back to like making like quote unquote mistakes, like you're learning from the experience of going to art school, and you learn that if that you don't actually want to do a career in art, then yeah, that's good. That's still time well spent. Hard just with that is that college is expensive, right? But you went through an experience, and all experiences that you go through life make you a better person. And then that'll just be one step of like going through and figure out what you truly want to do in life. Again, like, you shouldn't anticipate that you do everything right the very first time around. Again, saying someone who is very much a perfectionist, and I'm trying to change that aspect of myself. All right, come on, little shred. Get out of there, Jesus. Okay, but yeah, anyway, I got, more done. Got some of the hair, some of the glasses, the background. I'm gonna keep trucking along, all right? Right, I am all done with my carving. I was honestly very worried to do the text in the middle here, but honestly I think it turned out better than I thought. I like how it looks in there. That art though, that gave me some trouble. But anyway, I'm gonna go clean up this mess now, and I'll catch you when I start printing. All right, alrighty. Might have been just a couple seconds for you guys, but it's been a couple weeks. I've been very busy at my other job that I do, so I had to take a small break from working on art like this. But I am so excited to be testing out fabric ink. The kind I got is the Speedball Fabric and Paper. This is like an oil based ink. I got like several recommendations from peers, from my old printmaking professor. I think there's another kind I want to try in the future if I'm getting really into like printing on fabric, but for like a good easy option, good first option, I've heard that the Speedball is pretty good. So today I'm gonna make some swatches on some newsprint here with all the different types of ink that I got. I just got like primaries plus black. I'm going to try, since this is like hand size, I'm just going to try hand printing it first just to see what it looks like. But I'm also going to try printing on my press over there, and I'm going to try it on newsprint. And I got a couple of these canvas totes from Dick Blick. Just to try it on fabric. Canvas is pretty good, I heard, for working with fabric ink, so this will be a good testing material to use. I'm gonna use a little bit of ink on my plate here. I'm not gonna use like a lot, just a little bit. Let's see if that's enough. I don't want to use up too much of my ink since I'm only gonna do like a couple tests here. Got my brayer. Now I'm gonna start inking up my brayer, and I can already tell I need a lot more ink on here. Definitely smells different from the other ink I've used before. I'm not sure if you can hear that. It has like a very light sound to it. It sounds smooth, and you want it to be a little bit more tacky on the brayer. So I'm gonna add more ink onto it. The way my professor described it for like the texture that you want is like a wet sand. Just want it so it's not like really spread out and just like really goopy, but you still want some texture to be going on here. And it does take more ink to first initially ink up a brayer than it does in subsequent inking ups. Okay. Oh, you can kind of see the texture a little bit, but yeah, so it has like, it's more mottled, but it's not like really like extreme. So this is, to me, it feels pretty good. So, need to get more of that edge there. Since I'm doing such a small plate, I don't think it's gonna matter too much if I don't fully do the edges, but let's see what happens. I got my plate. I like to do my inking on like a non-slip mat. I just don't like it when I'm like pressing against the plate and just go like that. Is it like the smartest idea? Probably not, but I found that it's pretty easy to clean up a non-slip mat like this. It's good to get it cleaned up since I also used it to carve plates on it. But yep, I'm gonna start inking. This is very much gonna be like the guinea pig inking. So let's see. All right, looks like I did carve deep enough because it is not going into the edges, like the carve marks in the inner parts of it at all. I love using black ink the most, so I think that's why I gravitated toward that as being my first test color. But obviously it's kind of hard to do black ink first if you do my method of inking the plate up with Sharpie, like after you carved away all the bits, because you're like, oh, did I actually do a good job of inking it? Well, I guess we'll see. As for like this kind of plate, it seems like it's like inking pretty well. Like I'm pretty satisfied with how it feels on the brayer, so that's a good plus for it. And all right, now I'm gonna try doing a test print with it. Okay, welcome to the printing zone. I suddenly forgot how exactly I'm going to be showing my printing, what angles I want to do, but for now it's fine. I have my press here. I have a Woodzilla press. I love it dearly. It does me really good. I'm going to go grab my plate now, which is all inked up. Since I'm not really too choosy like where I want it on the plate, I'm just gonna just plop it on wherever. If you're like printing onto paper, something official like that, it's nice to have registration marks on like somewhere indicated on your plate, or there's many different methods out there. I'm kind of lazy. I just like to mark the actual printing press and pencil. It seems to work pretty fine with me, and I can clean it up pretty easily too, so that works for me. Now I'm gonna put on some newsprint here. And again, I'm not too picky, so I'm just gonna plop her down like that. Put on this felt piece, which adds more pressure to it. I didn't tweak any of the pressure onto this setup at all because I haven't worked with that kind of carving plate yet, but we'll see if this works out. Gonna move it this side. I'm gonna press it down, add some pressure there. I feel like I'm getting good pressure, so maybe that is enough. And I'm gonna remove it and see how it looks. You know what? That's actually not that bad. That's pretty good. It's very clean. Wow, this is probably one of the cleanest prints I've done in a long time. I like to over ink things, so that's just my usual, but this looks really clean, really nice. Okay. I'm not sure if I don't like the feel of like carving that the speedy carve plate, but I am quite impressed with how it looks on the paper. So all right, next steps are I'm gonna practice just like hand pressing it like an actual traditional stamp, since it's like perfectly stamp size. Maybe that'll help save a step for me, but now I'm gonna try out all the different colors. Okay, music is now off now, so I did my first canvas print. There's definitely some salting going on with it, which I was made aware that you kind of need to over ink your plate a little bit when you're you should over ink your plate a bit if you're working with fabric, because you know fabric, it absorbs materials, right? So I thought I decently inked it, but it could be there could be other factors. I didn't actually put as much ink as I thought I did, or it's just like with this kind of material, it just absorbs it really well. Okay, that's kind of interesting. I it looks like I was able to get a decent-ish pressure if I just did my hands, but I think I like my press more. But I'm not sure if you can see it on the camera well, but I got the texture of the fabric still on this like little handprint test. Time for round 2. When I was cleaning the plate, I noticed that it was, it says on the back of the ink that you could just use water and soap to clean it, and I was able to do everything else with just mostly water and soap. But with the plate, it was a little bit more trickier. So I just went with my tried and true method, making sure everything was super clean by first adding a little bit of veggie oil on top of it. I don't know. I'll be honest, I don't know why. It's just something I was taught in all my printmaking classes, just to put a little bit of veggie oil on top. And then I use soap and water. I just use a dish soap. There might be better soaps out there, but that's just what I use. And then you just make sure it's all completely dry and you are good to go. I like to do that for like all of my materials, including the brayer. I will admit I'm not the best at like cleaning the brayer. I'm a little bit too impatient sometimes. But if it gets like mostly off like this, if it's lightly stained, that's fine with me. And then when I was cleaning, I had like a big brain blast of what I can do for the next 3 colors, because I only have one more canvas bag to use as a tester, and I was reading the back of these inks, and it takes it takes overnight to dry them actually. So I was hoping to like do one layer, wait 30 minutes, do another layer. It's not gonna happen with these. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna do a little mini rainbow roll. And so that means I'm just going to put all 3 colors onto this plate here. I'm going to roll my brayer in one direction only. Usually when you're inking up a brayer, you like to go in multiple directions to make sure it's nice and properly covered. With if you're doing a rainbow roll, or aka a gradient, you kind of need to go in the same direction every single time, so it makes that nice smooth gradient on the brayer. For testing purposes, I'm now gonna do a gradient with the rest of the colors. Here's the inked plate. But yeah, so what I'm gonna do now, since this is there's a lot of ink on this plate. I might have put too much onto the inking plate, but that's okay. Other than, well, if you're doing gradients, you can't really save colors at the end. That's another thing why I don't do gradients that often. It's just, it seems wasteful to me, because I can't just like scoop it up and put it back in the bottle. They're all mixed together. It's not proper, like it's not the proper color anymore. But anyway, a little tangent there. Yeah, so this is like really inked up. So I'm gonna first do the fabric to see how it looks on that with even more inked up plate, and then I'm gonna go back and do it on my newsprint. Here we go. Okay. Part of what happened is that the fabric, oops, if you can see it, it got creased right in the middle, so it didn't get as perfect of a print on there. And another thing to keep in mind, for at least for this design, I have very small text in the middle of it. So since it was over inked purposely to do fabric, it made it so that it's a little bit harder to read the text on the fabric, since it got unfortunately just got filled up with ink in the crevices. But it looks pretty cute. It looks pretty cute. I don't mind it. All right, time to do a newsprint. Hello, this is Caitlin from the future. I just finished up editing this video, and it's been several weeks since I recorded all of that. It is now September when I'm recording this clip. So I've been very busy this summer, and I just realized, like, when I was editing this video that I did not record a conclusion yet. So here we go. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Just watching me learn like the process of like printing my logo and testing out new materials, talking about creativity and the art of like making mistakes and the grace that comes from that. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching. Like usual, and like with any other small YouTube creator out there, it is quite helpful to like, comment, subscribe, share, all those fun things if you liked my content. If you do want to watch my videos early, I do have a Patreon, so if you're interested in that, it's in the description to head over to that. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Have a good one. Bye bye.